welcome to Romera Records Virtual Cast. Today we have on Craig Garber. How's it going, man?
Great, Jackson. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so again, like I was telling you, I found you on Podmatch. I usually like to tell people where I find the people so that they'll know, how we can communicate and how people get podcasts and everything. But yeah, it's always been great through there. And as I saw that you do music and you've written books and all kinds of stuff. You did marketing, so I'd love to get into just how you been in the music business and everything that you've done with that.
Sure. I'm kind of like a periphery in the music business. I have a podcast called Everyone Loves Guitar, and I guess we're the largest musicians interview podcast out there. We've become over the last 4 years. I mean, I've dropped, I don't know, 1,100 episodes,
Oh
probably
God.
close to 900 of original content, and then we have some rebroadcasts of others. And then I have some other businesses now that I'm started that are periphery, but the platform all comes from Everyone Loves Guitar. And I was not in I knew nobody in the music business. I've only been playing guitar about 5 or 6 years. I've been a music fan my whole life, like diehard. But this is as much a surprise to me as it is anybody else, where this has come from and how it's grown.
So when you started doing the podcast and everything, does it seem like it was something that was easy for you to do, or because some people just aren't natural talkers, like some people struggle to conversate with others, so
Yeah.
it seemed natural?
Yeah, I have worked really hard actually to learn how to talk to people, and I've been in sales since 1989. So if you're not a good talker, you're not going to succeed. But the whole key is with being successful in sales is not talking, it's listening.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the whole key to talking to people in general. It's listening. It's not, especially it's when I'm having a guest on, it's their show, not mine. So I try to minimize actually what I'm saying, but I'm really focused on listening. And when I do communicate, I try to make it economical. It's like when music, if someone could play something in 5 notes and really like, oh my God, why does BB King do that? Or, and then somebody else will just, and it's like, oh, this is awful. This is
Yeah.
about 2,000 notes, but I haven't felt any of them. So I think being economical when you speak is kind of helpful as well.
I tell people all the time that you have to be able to uh, fully engage in listening. That I actually did an audiobook for a guy, and the book was like about emotional intelligence. And in the book, it was talking about you need to basically, when you're in the conversation, you want to be there to listen. Like, don't listen just to react. And because like sometimes we can be hearing somebody talk and we ready to answer, but it's like, hey, just listen, and if you have a thought, if it's that important, it'll come back to you. But otherwise, just sit there and listen.
Yeah, that's important. And you have a great voice. I could see why you've done audiobooks, man.
Thank
That helps a lot.
you. Yeah, a lot of
Having
people.
having
I was gonna say a lot of people have been telling me that, and it's funny when I tell them like, oh, I do audiobooks. So
well, it's not. I mean, I'm not surprised. Your voice is. There's different voices that make people comfortable.
mm,
So your voice is very. You have that pitch, and it's. You're not like, "Bup, bup, bup, bup," it's like very relaxed. It's kind of zen, and you want to, you want to get engaged with people like that.
yeah, I was talking to a friend about certain people in music. It's like their voice, they might not be the best singer, but you just like listening to it. It's really hard to explain. It's like, yeah, they're not that great of a singer, but I'm okay with just listening to it. Like however they pitch the voice. Like some people can just get away with, like a hum. Like some people, I don't know if you know who Kid Cudi is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I don't think Kid Cudi's some great singer, but he does this hum on a lot of his music, and everybody loves that Kid Cudi hum because
Yeah.
it's just so rhythmic, so smooth, and those are cool things to have. I mean, he's just blessed to have a voice like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my younger son turned me on to him a while back. He's a big fan.
He's got a phenomenal documentary on Amazon, and is basically just about his whole life. I can't remember the name. It might be like Cutter or something like that, or might have to deal with his first name. But yeah, basically during the whole documentary, it takes you through his discography. So it goes from like his first album or first mixtape where he was popular with a song called Day and Night, and then it goes all the way up until right now. And it's amazing because it takes you through such an emotional roller coaster, and also it talks about his relationship with certain people. Like him and Shia LaBeouf are like best friends.
That's pretty weird.
Right. Exactly. When I was like Shia LaBeouf, but yeah, they're like best friends, and he talks about how he knew when Kid Cudi was going through drug addictions and all this kind of stuff, really dark times. But I'm just like that documentaries like that. I love them because we get to see into the mind and the life of the artist that we don't usually get to see. So some people just need to see that.
Yeah, that's why I like doing my show because it's not we don't talk about gear or anything. It's a bio. How did you get from point A to point B? And like you, I'm super curious about that. I'm always feeling like I'm behind the eight ball. So if I get one other thing, it doesn't have to be related to any of the businesses or personal situations I'm involved with. But a good idea is a good idea, and I'm always looking to hear good ideas. So
Absolutely. I think the best way we can pick up different things is like through podcasts because we get to ramble and rant on things that we don't usually get to with people who aren't familiar with what we're talking about. If you're an engineer or if you're just a producer or an artist, whatever you do, it's great to just talk about that kind of stuff because you're like, oh, finally somebody knows what I'm talking about. They get what I'm doing. So, so with your podcast, you say you do a lot of type of biography type stuff, getting into the life of the person. What are some things that have come up in the podcast that you feel like are noteworthy?
oh my lord, like the number one question I get usually is what's your favorite episode? And I don't really have a favorite episode, but I have certain episodes and certain people that touched me personally for various reasons. So I had I had a there's a lot of most of my guests are baby boomers and up, 40, probably over 50.
Mm.
And I'm 58. So it's the life experiences are fairly relatable.
Yeah.
Even if, we're from different places and whatever, but you live long enough, you're getting burnt on something of life. And so that's relatable. But, people have talked about a lot of sober stories and alcoholism in the family, drug addiction. But there's three people that in particular I was just blown away. I had a guy, a touring and session bass player out of California named Al Berry. And Al grew up in Philadelphia. His mom, I think, was raised by his grandmother. No, raised by his mother and then his grandmother. They were both really good parents to him. And he had a situation there where he was sexually abused by some of the local kids when he was, I don't know, 13, let's call it like that. He was a smallish, scrawny little kid then. And first of all, just being able to talk about this stuff, he's done a lot of work, that was evident to me. Anyway, 3 or 4 years later, he was very involved in music. Things were going well for him. He had a great girlfriend. He had been working out, so he had grown physically. And he's sitting on the bus going somewhere. And bus stops, people get in, and one of the guys who sexually molested him gets on the bus.
Mm.
Right, that's pretty heavy, and sits down a few seats ahead of him. And I'll never forget what he said. I said, how did you handle that? How did you not like jump out of your seat and kill him? And he said, Craig, I, he said, I knew I could never get that stain off of me.
Mm.
And I thought that, and he actually had empathy for the guy because the guy, I think the guy's mom was like a lesbian. And, this is back in like the late 70s, early 80s in the projects, in black culture. That's not particularly hip, especially back in the day. So he had managed to somehow have some empathy for this kid, which, I mean, the grace that he had as a young man still himself, that blew me away. That really blew me away. I had another guy on the show. He's a well-known luthier. A luthier is someone who works on guitars and builds guitars. He's a pretty well-known luthier online.
I've never heard that phrase before. What is that?
Yeah, luthier, Luthier. Yeah, it's just a craft. It's the craft of guitar building and working on guitars. And his name is Joel Wilkins. And so I think I met him because online somewhere, he used to very nice comments on a lot of my shows, and I guess some of the guys I had and the guests I had on my show were his clients, so he knew them, and so he and I just started talking with him, and I said, man, you have a particular he has a particular expertise in vintage Gibson and Fender guitars, which are kind of like the most popular guitars, and vintage is a sort of niche. So I said, I think my audience would like that because 80% of it's called Everyone Loves Guitar, but 20% of my guests are not guitar players. There are other people in the music industry, keyboard, bassists, drummers, and but I thought it would be a good guest. And he sends me his bio, and in his bio is a story about how he was in a car crash. He used to race cars and motorcycles. He was in a motorcycle accident at 18, and he's paraplegic.
Mm.
I had no idea he was he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, can we talk about that on the show? And I always, sensitive stuff like that, we don't record live anyway, but I always ask for permission to do that. And it's weird when you ask for permission, people are like, oh yeah. But if you don't ask for permission, I think they'd be really pissed off.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do that. That's just not me. I try to be respectful to everybody. Anyway, so what I thought was so cool, and I really admired him, is in today's day and age, Jackson, I see people complaining on social media, whining about everything.
Mm.
I remember I saw one guy, he was like a little bitch. He's whining on social media about how he called somebody. They didn't call him back, but he saw them posting on social media. I mean, first of all, how narcissistic is right? I mean, all the shit going on in the world, right? He's not complaining about his mom has cancer. He's complaining about someone didn't return it. Like, what a little bitch. I mean, I hate to sound so like condescending, but like, anyway. So, and meanwhile, you got Joel. He's in a wheelchair. Nobody knew. Nobody knows. So I was blown away by, to me, that guy's a hero.
Mm.
And then I recently had Beth Hart on my show. She's a pretty well-known singer, incredible soul singer. Just beautiful voice. And, she's had a lot of trauma, and she was just very open in talking about it. She was raped at a 12-year-old by like a 40-year-old dude that she was kind of in a sexual relationship with. And I mean, like, she struggled with addiction and a lot of other things, but just to, the things people go through in life are not, you always think, oh, if I didn't have to deal with this. I don't really think like that after doing my show because, I get this constant thing of, hey man, we all got shit to deal with, And so those are pretty powerful episodes to me. And then I've also met a couple of people that I grew up kind of rough. So when I meet people, there's a few people you'll meet in your life that they literally just don't have a bad bone in their body.
Yeah.
And when I meet people like that, it's really, I'm like endeared to them because of how I grew up being a little rough and having some, being very not trusting for a long. And I meet people like that are just so loving. I'm like, wow, I really, like I want to give them a hug because they're like, there's nothing you got to worry about with people like that. And there's not a lot of them because we all got injured some way. We're all fighting, or, not all of us, but 99% of us. So when you meet someone that's just filled with, like unconditional love and not, to me, that's a very touching thing. So those are like some of the things that I've been fortunate to come across.
To elaborate on your last point, this it's kind of funny, but I was at a party with one of my best friends, and we're playing beer pong, and this one guy. So we're all matching up partners or whatever, and I get partnered up with this guy, and I'm talking the most suave type. Like he's got this long curly hair, and he's kind of buff. And it's great smile, good looking guy, and he's like, we're gonna be partners, and I was like, yeah. He was like, all right, cool, man, let's have a good game. I was like, all right, weird. And then I took a shot, and I had missed it, and he was like, oh, you'll get it next time, man. And I was like, is this dude messing with me? Like, I was like, is he, just trying to piss me off or something? But he was actually like a genuinely nice guy, good looking guy, and he was really cool. And at first, I just had this perception, I was being prejudiced on him. I was thinking he was just being a douche, but he was actually
Right.
super cool. And it was just so weird. Like, you're not used to somebody just having it all together. You know what I mean? Like he was just a genuine person. So when you find people like that, it's very relieving that we've got nice people in the world compared to the people like you were talking about who get upset when somebody doesn't call them back.
I mean, the guy's like 50 something. What kind of coping skills have you, like? I mean, you need some help, man. If that's and then you're screaming about it. But here's the twisted thing, and this is what's bad about social media. There's always 5 people out there to validate your stupidity.
Oh.
Like, oh yeah, that's terrible. That was so mean of them. Like, maybe they just don't want to return your call. Like, I don't know how somebody feels about me is not my business. That's my attitude anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope I never have that little going on, that someone not returning a phone call. My kids don't always return my call. Why would I be worried about somebody else? I don't know, Jackson.
I always think about American problems. That's why.
Right. Yeah, right. That's a first world problem, right? Ask those people in Somalia or the Ukraine if they're worried about someone not returning a phone call. I know, man. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it just seems like, especially with, I guess, just like the music industry or really anything, like when you see people on social media trying to promote themselves or do something like that, there's always one person. I think sports is the worst. I'm a huge football fan, and I watch some basketball, but for basketball, it's terrible with LeBron. Like,
oh man,
there's some Instagram pages that post a lot of just sports in general, but when it's basketball season, it's almost always LeBron, and people will make jokes. It's become a running joke of like, they'll post something that has nothing to do with LeBron, absolutely nothing. It'll be some kids in school or something like that, and then they'll be like, don't let this distract you from LeBron's career season. Oh my God. But he's just one of those guys that he's been so great at his sport that people can't help but hate him. Like, people love to hate him, and it's so unfortunate, but that's just the world. Like, no matter how great you are, I always tell people you could be the most beautiful apple, but somebody's going to want an orange. So don't even worry
absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, people comment, I'll have a 2-hour interview and someone will feel compelled to say, man, I really wish he would have talked about this obscure band he was in 1968. Like, okay.
Sure.
Sorry. Like, who has the time to even say that?
Yeah. And
I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
For people to, like, the entitlement of, I think people who are more my age, like I'm 29, and so people who are my age and younger, I've seen it. Like, I don't feel like I have it, But I do feel like a lot of people who are my age and younger just have this sense of entitlement where it's like, why didn't I get what I wanted? And it's like, why do you
Yeah.
deserve what you want?
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing, this dirty four-letter word called work, and you can pretty much like get whatever you want. I think it's maybe a little more prolific in younger kids, but I think it's a lot of people in general feel like I feel entitled. That's how it comes off to me. I'm a big guy for work ethic because I think when work ethic, in my observation, tells you a lot about a person. Because if someone's has a good work ethic, they're generally good people as well. And if someone doesn't, they're lazy. Those are the people you got to worry about. They're cutting corners. They're always, But when someone's got a good work ethic, that usually expands into the rest of their life. My observations, anyway.
Yeah, I had a coach in high school. His name was Coach Camp, and he had a saying. He said, "You can call me anything you want, but you can't call me lazy." And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm taking that for forever.
Yeah,
Such a good
absolutely.
phrase. Because of
Hey,
what you just
let me
said.
close it. I'm sorry. I hear someone mowing their lawn. Let me just close it. I apologize.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Sorry, man. I apologize.
There's a famous YouTuber that I usually watch his like camera reviews, and he'll have to stop everyone. Like he'll put it in his videos, and he's like, and then he'll show him stopping, and he'll just put like in text like lawnmower noises or building noises because
Right.
wherever he's at, there's just like always mowing the lawn like during his videos, and he's like
It happens. Yeah, I leave stuff like that in my shows as well. I mean, I'm like, if you're looking for perfection, I'm probably not the show that you want to watch.
So to me, doing that shows people like you being genuine and like
Yeah.
just being open and realistic. And I think that draws more people to you because like when you have like this, I want to say like a cookie cutter like type show where you're trying to just be perfect, it's sometimes like it's great, if you have great quality, it can be great, but
Sure.
sometimes I think that like raw feeling to it, and that's why I post this podcast like that. I just, I start it from when I'm welcoming the guest and then end it when I'm saying thanks for everybody tuning in. And so that I do that so that everybody can see like, there's no smoke and mirrors. It's just me and
Right.
that person, genuine conversation, and we're just getting to know each other.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. And I think the good thing about podcasting is you can do what works for you. Like, I have a buddy and he has a show and he's like edits everything out, and that's just not my thing, man. And I'm not worried if someone, and you know what? I don't get any really, I don't get any, no one's, I'll tell you a funny story. There was one comment I got. This was really funny. I've done, like I said, 900 shows in 4 years. So statistically, something's got to go wrong. It's just not possible, right? So early on, maybe in the first year, I had a pretty big guest on the show. And I'm trying to think who it was. This is another problem when you had so many guests. You don't. It was, I'm embarrassed. A guitar player from a real successful band. Anyway, that's not important. I see it back early on. I would watch people's comments. How many stars? What were they saying? And somebody leaves a note there. It says, "I can't believe this guy went to the bathroom and left the podcast running." And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That I did go, and I wish I would have known who the guy was. He gave me a 1-star rating, deservedly so. But I wish I would have known because I would have thanked him, because I went back in there, I saw that, and then I cut that part out.
Oh.
But what happened, I just said, "Hey, I have to run to the bathroom." I went to the bathroom, came back, and I forgot to cut it all out. So that I will cut out. Bathroom breaks, stuff like that. And I always, too, sometimes people will say things, negative things about people that I think are going to get them in trouble. So I always make a note, and like someone will say, "Oh, I worked for that bastard and he never paid me." And so I'll make a note, and at the end of the show, I'll say, "Hey, listen, it's your it's your interview, but I would prefer if your career doesn't get ended because you came on my show. I'd like to edit that out." And they're like, "Oh yeah, please, But outside of that, I don't have too many edits.
Yeah, it's all about being able to understand like what your audience is going to be okay with, and then also like moralistically, like what are you okay with? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want people to perceive you and your podcast? And I'd never use like bad language and stuff, but I tell people, yeah, fine, because I want people to be themselves. Like, you
Yeah.
want to cuss, go ahead, cuss. I don't care. And even so, I never drink, but last night I had a guy. He was like, "Hey, can I bring some beer?" He didn't bring the beer, but he ended up drinking with me because I had some tequila in the studio just in case for the guest. Sorry, I have a actual studio. This is like at my house, but
Okay.
um, anyways, I had some tequila at the studio, and he was like, "Oh, I'll take some of that," and I was like, "All right, sure." But I had a glass with him, and we just had a good time, but.
Right.
Those are the types of things, as I said, it's just being genuine with people and showing them like, hey, this is me, this is them, and you're watching us communicate and share thoughts.
Yeah, it's less stress that way, I think.
Absolutely. So going back to like your book, what is that about?
Oh, okay. So my real career is I'm a marketing consultant, specifically in something called direct marketing. So like generating leads and building sales funnels and stuff like that. So I was kind of like a pretty successful online guru for many years in that. And also copywriting. Most of my money I've earned over the last 22 years between consulting and copywriting. I've written well over 4,000 ads in the last 22 years. Between emails and sales letters and ads and this is old school in magazines and newspapers, online webinars, everything. I've done a lot. But so I wrote a book years ago called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers.
Hmm.
And it was just like 21 different marketing strategies that I've used. And, it's funny. I go back and look at it, and I was a very different person then. I was a lot less approachable. And so that's the only thing, because the content in it is good still. But when I meet people now, I say, hey, I was thinking of getting your book. I'm like, okay, you'll learn stuff, but let me just, I'm a little different now. So, but I got out of the guru business because of that. Because, to be a guru, you really have to focus on positioning and you got to drop a lot of pearls of wisdom on social media so people think you got your shit together. I don't. I'm a work in progress. I don't even want to pretend that I have, I'm like everybody else. I just, God get me through the day, keep my family healthy, and then it's a win. Um, so, so I wrote that book. I think I'd publish it in '09.
Hmm. Do you feel like there's other things that you could have accomplished from the book, or do you feel like that was that was a phase in your life and you're done with it?
No, I feel good about that and what I did, and I still do a lot of consulting work, but I'm just it's from referrals or people who know me or people who've found out about me. I just don't do the guru thing online. That just wasn't when there's a certain template that you have to have to be successful in, if you're like the person in any endeavor, there's a template, and it has to be driven by a lot of, you have to be obsessed with getting likes or being liked. And that's kind of being ego driven, and it's nothing wrong with it. I have plenty of buddies that are like that. It's just not me. I don't care about that. And I can't pretend to care about that. I'm not going to post like, this is my wife and I at a nice hotel. That's no one's business. I'm not that guy. And it just didn't fit me. So I was really glad I did what I did, and I was glad I stopped doing what I was doing. I was glad I got away from the guru thing, because it just wasn't me. I'm not that guy. Again, nothing wrong with it. Just wasn't me.
Yeah, me and my wife have had this conversation many a times because, I've got two businesses. One is just with music and the audiobooks and stuff like that, and the other one still with music, but it's a record label we do publishing and photography, video, so it's media. But and then my wife is a personal trainer, and so
Okay, cool.
we were talking about just ways of marketing and like posting on social media and stuff. And we just follow so many people who talk about like, posting all the time. And we were just like researching and we were just like, yeah, that's not us. Like we don't
Yeah.
do that.
You have to do some. For me, anyway, one of the things I learned by failing at things is I have to do things that's congruent with who I am. Where my place in the universe is like peaceful.
Mm.
And I think everybody needs to do that. And so some people, that's their place in the universe. They're like they feel at home, and that's cool. But that's not my thing, man. It's just not my thing.
Yeah. Also, I just realized this is another saying that that coach in high school said. Um, Gosh, what was it? Oh, he said there's two kinds of people in this world. There's the kind of people who say it's like the two kinds of people like in a room. One is people who say "Here I am," and then the other group of people is "There you are." And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty neat because there's some people who just always want attention. Then there's people who don't care to have the attention. They're like, oh, yeah, there you are.
That's a great one. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm probably in the middle. I'm more towards there you are, but I'm definitely not here I am. And that's what was uncomfortable for me with that. It just wasn't my values are more my values over time have changed more from I still enjoy business and working and I enjoy earning good money and I enjoy the hard work. I don't identify myself with that anymore.
Mm.
That's not what my identity is more wrapped up in. We're in a good position now. My wife and I have been together 29 years. That's really important to me. We have 3 kids. They're all out on their own. They're doing, those things are far more important to me than work. I still work hard, but my identity is a little different.
Yeah, I think some people don't know how to manage that, work life and then their personal life and their free time. And me personally, like, I will definitely evaluate myself on usually like a weekly basis, maybe every few days. I'm like, okay, like, how much work have I gotten done? How much fun have I had? And how much
Right.
time have I spent with my wife? Like those
Right.
are like the three things that I evaluate my week because if I feel like I haven't gotten that much work done, then it's like, okay, why haven't you gotten work done? And is it because you've been having fun or having fun with your wife? Like, if those are the three things I care about, I just basically want to balance those things to, am I working? Am I just having fun? Whatever I'm doing, or am I spending time with Rachel? And the better I can balance those three things, and the more I can shift having fun and having fun with Rachel and doing that while working, that's great. But it's for mental health. You've
Yeah.
got to just balance that kind of relationship in your life.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. You're a very smart person. I wish I had your intelligence at your age, but that's the right. Yeah, man. I mean, seriously, it's. I think that's a real healthy, like you said, for your mental health. It's, life's tough enough.
It is, and I don't think that some people really understand that being able to grasp like what am I thinking right now? To be able to just stand still and pause and just take a break in your day and just be like, okay, like how's my day been? What have I really accomplished? What am I doing? And when you are able to do those kinds of things, it makes you more efficient. Your anxiety goes way down. Like you are able to just function better. And a lot of times, it may be like what you're eating or how you've been treating other people. You might not notice it until you do take that time to self-evaluate because when you are in a state of just like go go go, which most people are nowadays, or most people might pretend that they are.
Yeah.
But when you're doing these things, if you don't self-evaluate, then you might self-destruct, and
Yeah.
that's
I agree with you.
that's a problem with with, I think, even young people or older people. Like the world is changing for everybody. There's no age group where the world's just standing still. So you got to adapt, but you also got to take in for yourself and understand, like, all right, am I who I want to be? I I love sayings, but
No, I do too. I think you got to have some guiding things. Then they're great for that.
yeah, I had a saying for myself. It was, you are who you are because you've been doing what you're doing, and you'll be who because that you'll do what you want to do. And so
Yeah.
you've got to figure out, like, okay, I'm at where I'm at because I've been doing, or I've done what I've done. So it's nobody else. There's no exterior factor that is really controlling you. It might, steer you left and right, and rain controls how you drive, but
Sure.
you still got a destination, and if you go there, that's up to you. Rain can affect how fast you get there, but it's not going to affect the destination. So anyways, I was saying all that just to say, you got to figure out, how you're going to live your life, and just do it.
Yeah, and I think doing things like walking.
Oh yeah.
Like when I go walking, man, that's that's time to evaluate for me. That's when okay, what's going on? Where am I at? And I get a lot of stuff, a lot of that self-evaluation you talked about done there.
Yeah, when you're walking, just kind of look around. You see the world around you.
Yeah.
You hear sounds that you might not have heard in a while. You might see like a weird beetle or something like that, and it'll just kind of trigger things in your mind. It might trigger your past. You might be like, oh, I remember seeing one of those when I was a kid, or something like that. So memory is a really crazy thing that can really affect our everyday life based off of our interactions with the world around us. So I definitely think more people should walk. Like,
Oh, dude, it's like so healthy for you, man. It's so good. I mean, physically it's healthy, but mentally, it's like you said, mental health. It's your awareness, as you can be aware. Because, like, I have headphones. I almost never take them when I go walking, for that reason.
that's a smart thing. I never really thought about that.
And I love music, believe me, because I'm really tempted. But I listen to music all day, so
I actually think about that with working out. Like sometimes I don't use music when I work out on purpose, so that a lot of people like to listen to music to get like amped up,
yeah, right. I do.
but sometimes I'll not use music on purpose so that it's just like innately inside of me. It's like not taking a pre-workout, so that you just, like, I guess you get more focused because you're not using an external factor to help you get there. It's just like you and the weights. It's just
Right.
us two. So I don't know.
Well, you can do that when you're 29. When you're double that age, you're probably going to need music, bro.
Later or something. So so with the marketing stuff, I'm really intrigued with this.
Yeah.
So with being able to, I guess, consult and assist people, does it seem like most people have the wrong, I guess, impression of how marketing works? I would think most people.
Yeah, they do.
I would
100%.
So
100%.
what are some things that people are usually, I guess, misconcepting? They probably think, well, oh, if I just post this thing, 1 million people are going to see it.
Yeah, right. That's okay. So that's a really good question. There's a number of specific things, and it depends on what level you are. Because I can work with someone who's an advanced marketer. They know these things already, and they have one set of issues. And then but let's talk about basics. So most people, the biggest problem they have, you say, hey, who's your customer? Everybody's my customer. Everybody needs haircuts. Okay, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need a haircut, of course, but I mean, that's problematic because when you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. Because people want to, you have to identify, we're open for everybody. Well, versus, we specialize in coloring women's hair. or whatever. And then you can have multiple specialties and you break them down in multiple marketing pieces. We have where your different marketing can address different people, but you can't speak to everybody because nobody relates to that. They want to relate to, if you're a therapist and you say, well, I handle family problems. Well, that's not that good. You want to be more specific, than that. I specialize in working with divorced families, specifically divorced families with young children to initiate healing or whatever. But you really want to talk to specific people in your audience, even if you do work with multiple people. And really, the truth is, if you can drill down into having more of an, like my show, Everyone Loves Guitar. So like I said, 20% of my guests are not guitar players. I knew if I started a show of, music bios, nobody would listen. It's too generic. But Everyone Loves Guitar. If you're a guitar player, you might give me a shot. Right? And so then afterwards, I expanded through that. Once I had an audience, I said, okay, let me see if I can go further with different things and other musicians. And the thing I was very lucky personally about was, I started off literally talking to students. Where are you located?
I'm in Memphis.
Okay. So Belmont, Belmont University in Nashville. Yeah. So I started talking off kids who just graduated school, and I sort of worked my way up from a white belt to a black belt. And then once I had my black belt in guitars, I was very lucky. I didn't have to start I got an instant black belt entry into like bass players and drummers and and engineers and stuff like that. But I knew that I had this captive audience, and we weren't like pushing it dramatically. If you're into music, you're not going to say, well, you had this drummer on, you had the drummer from Deep Purple on there, and it wasn't my thing. You're going to listen because you're there for the stories at that point in time, and people need to treat their businesses more like that. And from a marketing standpoint, the other thing is you can't always get a customer in your marketing. Sometimes you just want to generate a lead. So what I mean a lead is that you want to let people qualify them. Not everybody's qualified to work with you. I mean, if you're a financial planner, right, you might work on helping middle-income families reach retirement. You might specialize in working with affluent families setting up charitable trusts, right? You have to it's kind of like fishing. If you go fishing in a lake, if you put out a ball of bread, you might get a catfish. If you put out a particular kind of Senko floating worm, you might get a bass. And it's the same thing with marketing. So that whatever bait you put out dictates who responds to those ads. Mm-hmm. So you really want to figure out who do you want to respond to those ads and put out information that's going to attract, put out the bait that's going to attract the kinds of prospects that you want. And that's all within your control. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say this subject is hilarious to me for females, because a lot of them who on social media will post like partially nude photos and all that kind of stuff and get upset when guys are like saying the most crude things to them. This does not mean it's okay for guys to do this, but
right.
But the bait that you are putting out there, don't get surprised if a shark wants to bite.
Dude, I hear this all the time because, there's a lot of women that are single and divorced in their 50s, right? And a lot of them will, I don't know if it's to spite a former relationship, but they're walking around, new set of bolt-ons, low-cut top, and then like you hear, oh, men only want one thing. Well, you're leading with that. That's you're marketing that. What are you think you're going to attract?
Yeah.
You want to attract the guy that goes to church every Sunday. That's not the dude that's going to respond. I mean, he might, but there's other, what I'm saying? It's exactly what you said. Yeah, of course, people are crude. There's no reason to be crude. And it's like, that's not the issue though. They're leading, they're advertising that. So that's attracting to them. Totally, man. Absolutely. Another thing, uh, I just started to talk about leads. Sometimes you don't want to make a sale, you just want to attract a lead. So, for example, there's 3 or 4 situations where you're better off attracting leads. One of them is if you're selling high-end services, and I'll explain what this is in a minute. One of them is if you're selling high-end services. One of them is if your process takes a long time to complete, like life insurance, mortgage brokers. One of them is if you're in a kind of a squirrely industry where it's a lot of deception, like roofing. Um, there are certain industries, used cars, right? There are certain industries that just tend to have a lot of deception in them or fraud.
Hmm.
And so if you're doing one of those things, you probably don't want to try to get a sale. You probably just want to find someone that's interested in what you're offering. So I don't know. Let's say an accountant. You might put out, a 7 biggest or a report or a video series online. The 7 biggest mistakes new business owners. If you're interested in working with new business owners, 7 biggest mistakes new business owners make when setting up their books or whatever. But it's a track. That's the kind of thing that your client, if you handle new businesses, would be attracted to.
Hmm.
You're not trying to make a sale. You're just trying to educate them. And sometimes, especially in these situations, people need romance. You go on a date with a woman, you don't like, hey, listen, why don't we skip dinner, drinks, and a walk in the park, and let's just go to bed. That's probably, you could try that. It's probably not going to work effectively.
Yeah.
So there's a process, a romance process in business as well. And it has to do with people getting comfortable with you. They don't know you. People have to know you, like you, and trust you before they're willing to buy from you. And so many times generating a lead and courting somebody effectively in a business scenario is the way to develop that rapport. And then you stay in touch with them through email, social media posts. And at some point in time, they're going to say, hey, I've been following your stuff a while, and I started my business 6 months ago, and I'm at the point I need some help with my accounting or whatever service you're providing. So generating a lead versus getting business, that's another big thing that people don't do.
Yeah, I've always thought that it's always great to kind of, throw out those appetizers to a person before you give them the main course, because you want them to feel basically just comfortable. You want them to feel like what they're doing is a good decision, because that's why.
That's important. What you just said, they have to feel it's a good decision. That has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if whether you're going car shopping or something like that, as you were talking about, like those deceptive types industries, everybody always feels like they're getting scammed. That's everybody's initial thought. So if you can make people feel as if you're genuine, it's not a scam, then they're going to be more inclined to listen to what you have to say, and they're going to be more inclined to feel good about the decision that they're making. Because if people don't feel good about the decision, number one, it's going to take them longer to make that decision, and number two, it's going to take more to convince them that it is a good decision. Like
Totally.
As we were talking about the dating analogy, like if you are super sketchy with a person, like, your profile picture is an animal and that has nothing to do with it's going to take a person a while to be like, okay, should I go out with this person? Like, should I trust them? But the more upfront you are, and the more you have all these signals of, yes, I'm real. Yes, I'm okay. Like, then it's easy for the person to make the decision.
Yeah, easier. And like, if you're coming from a sketchy industry, you'd want to say something like, look, let's be upfront. There's a lot of roofers or whatever the industry. I'm not picking on roofers. There's a big thing in here now, down here in Florida, that, these guys are going around saying, hey, we can get you a new roof. And, they're like, there was a hailstorm and you're entitled to a new roof. So they're just basically ripping off insurance companies. That's why it was in my mind. They got signs all over the place now. Anyway, you want to say, hey, the roofing industry can be kind of sketchy from time to time. For example, this typically happens, and you address these things. And I want you to know that, here's what we have in place so that that we're not doing any of these things. Right away, you're dealing with the issue and like people lowered their defenses that way.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny you keep talking about roofing. I actually work for Owens Corning, and
Yeah, they make don't they make the
yeah, they make the shingles,
yeah, right.
and they do that and the insulation and stuff like that.
Right.
But something sketchy that happens that we know. So when basically Owens Corning works like it's a manufacturing plant where we make the shingles, but we get orders. So Home Depot might make an order of Oak Ridge, or Onyx Black is the color, and so we'll have to make that product. So we'll be making that product. It goes out the door. Truck drivers come up, they pick it up, they take it to the store. Well, what happens is people will, they'll hire a roofing company, and the roofers are smart. They know what the shingles are supposed to look like. Well, what happens is they will put the shingles on the roof knowing that they're bad shingles. Like they'll evaluate the shingles and be like, oh, these are bad shingles. They'll put the shingles on the roof, and then they'll tell the person, hey, there's something wrong with these shingles. These shingles are bad. And so the person will be like, oh man, I need to get new shingles. They'll tell the insurance company, and then be like, well, you got to take it up. So the roofers get paid to put those shingles on the roof, and then they got paid to take the shingles off the roof, and then get paid to put new shingles back on the roof.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. So you'd want to address something like that. And they're like, hey, these are things going on. We have an auditing process where we look at our shingles. We'll show them to you. We make sure they're not bad. Of course, if you are sketchy, you won't be doing that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are the kinds of things that are important to do.
Yeah. And for people to, I always think it's great for people to just be well-rounded because of just stuff like that. I love my podcast because I have all these different kinds of people on, and so if you're watching my podcast, you've gotten knowledge from all kinds of people. So just being aware of like small things like that, and just having that kind of just common sense, like in life in general, when you can pick up on how things are going. Because if you like being a good salesperson, you can pick up on people's bull from a mile away. Like, when people are just lying to you and not being truthful to you because you're a salesperson. Like,
yeah, there's a bullshit detector that sort of, I actually like that, knowing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good skill to have, because that's what we're all afraid of, is that somebody's trying to scam us out of money or our house and home. And we just want to understand. Totally,
man. Absolutely.
Do you think that whenever you're marketing to people and you're helping people with their marketing scheme, that they have a hard time grasping these kind of concepts because they're not familiar with the techniques?
Sometimes in the beginning, but I'm pretty patient. Okay. I'm more like the person like, hey, does this make sense to you? I want them to, they're paying me. I want them to walk away thinking, man, that was money well spent. So I also ask people in the beginning, I do an assessment, like, and just from being around people so many years, okay, this person doesn't have a big skill set. So I'll even sometimes refer them to books, or I'll just talk, I'll look up this concept, or go to my book, or go, nowadays it's so easy. You talked about mistakes. Like whenever I'm looking up something that's brand new, first thing I do is like mistakes people make with blank. I just want to know. And there's no, nowadays with now, I have to balance, because my kids will call me for stuff. And, I have 3 kids. They're 2 of them are older, 30, almost 32, 30, and then 22. And so they'll all call me for stuff, which is another funny thing about being a parent. You're like real stupid until they're out of the house. Then man, it's really funny. So I have to balance. Sometimes they'll call me and I'm like, man, you should Google that. So I don't want to, I have to balance between making sure they're learning and being it, but I don't want to not get the calls because I like helping them out. You know what I mean? It's just different, a new thing you have to do with parenting as your kids get older.
I even
So,
do that with
but
my wife. Like a lot of times she'll ask me questions and I'm just like, you could have just Googled it. But I'm just like,
dude, yes,
yeah,
and that's
sometimes
important to
better
do
do
with your spouse
it. Yeah,
or your partner. Yeah, because you don't realize you enable people by, you're not serving somebody if you're always doing stuff for them. Yeah, and that's real important. That, if you care about someone, you got to let them do it and feel good. And they got some skin in the game now. They feel different.
yeah. I definitely think that there's value in helping somebody just be a better version of themselves. Like
Yeah,
just helping them,
totally, man.
instead of doing everything for them, help them just do the things that they want to do without your help.
Yeah,
Because when you can do that, it adds value to who you are.
yeah, and they feel better about themselves, and that's when you can make your spouse help them feel better about themselves. Man, you win. I mean, you win out of that. So I mean, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and if you are doing those kinds of things, I think it helps you become a better. It helps you understand things better. Like so, last night I got done with a podcast, and it was like 9 p.m. and I had a guy that wanted to come and learn engineering, audio engineering. So I was like, yeah, man, just come on by. So I
In your
spent,
studio.
yeah, yeah, in my studio, and so I think we stayed there till close to midnight, and I just taught him, the basics from recording all the way to how to EQ, how to compress, and he's actually a rapper. Like he is a good rapper, but he just wasn't used to learning like what is compression, like what
Sure.
when you EQ, like what are you really doing? And he's like, oh man, that makes sense. He just kept saying that, like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense, because he just didn't know those fine details. And when I'm having to explain it to him, it makes me better at what I do because I have to actually know what I'm talking about. I can't
Yeah.
BS him through it. I've got to actually know what I'm talking about, because if he can't hear the difference in these things or understand the difference, then he's not going to really find the value in what I'm trying to give him. Like we were messing with an 1176 plugin from Universal Audio, and I'm trying to describe to him an attack. And have you seen the funny memes of somebody and their mom and trying to explain what compression is?
No, I have
It
to
is,
look at
it's really
where
funny.
do I look for those, man? That would be funny.
I think you
For
just
my
have to like Google search it, because I don't even remember where I saw it, but it's really good. And
it's engineering memes basically.
yeah, it's audio engineering memes.
Okay,
And
that's hilarious.
so the one is like, okay, this is what a limiter is. And so it shows like a guy with like his head is through a roof, and it's so it's saying like that's the roof is what the limiter would be, and then showing like his head through that. And then the compression one's really funny because it's so true. So it's saying um like your input is how loud you want your music to be. The threshold is how loud your mom tells you can play the music. The
That's funny.
attack, the attack is how quickly your mom tells you to turn the music down.
That's
And the
hilarious.
release is how quickly you turn the music back up after your mom has told you to turn it down. But that is compression. That is literally
that's
101 what compression is.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I would post a couple of those because I have had a lot of engineers on my show.
But yeah, stuff like that, like even stuff simple as those memes, it helps people understand like what that stuff is. And when I explained it to him, he was like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." I'm like, "Yeah, it's those simple things. When you can find those nuances and be able to explain it to other people, they're just going to find value in who you are, because you've become a better teacher, and just how you say things to people, not coming off aggressive, coming off as like, hey, I'm genuinely just trying to explain to you like how this stuff works. People feel comfortable around you, and they're willing to listen.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Making things easy to digest is important.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, have you done like video stuff, or you only done like the book, or what do you do?
Yeah, well, the video stuff came like, you mean for marketing?
Yeah, yeah, anything like
Oh, every one of my shows is a video.
oh, okay,
We have all our shows on YouTube as
gotcha.
well as audio podcasts, and actually we get a pretty large audience on YouTube, which is another thing, that a marketing thing. If you want to relate it to that, you are not your customer, so don't ever sit and say, "Well, I wouldn't do that," because that doesn't mean your customers won't do that.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, that's an old rule. You are not your customer.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't listen to me for 2 hours on a video. But other people have, not listen to me, but they want to hear me interview people.
Yeah.
So that's another one. But yeah, so I don't have a lot of marketing stuff on video because I'm not actively marketing myself for that anymore.
Yeah. That's it's such a difficult thing, that whole, you aren't your customer, because you're trying to market to people the way you would want to be marketed to. And it's not good, because like I tell people all the time that right there, like, I probably wouldn't, do that, even with like, so TikTok, like I'm not huge into TikTok.
Right.
I never look at it unless I only got it because one of my best friends uses it, and so he will send me stuff on there, but that's it. That's the only time I ever open the app, is when he sends me something.
Right.
So, and a lot of people all the time are like, dude, you got to get TikTok because music is getting huge on there. Cool, but I'm not into it.
Not your thing. Yeah.
And maybe I should be on there, but I'm not going to be really into it because I'm not into it.
Well, that's another marketing thing, Jackson. Like, you can't serve every master.
Yeah.
You gotta, like me. I like YouTube. I do post stuff on Facebook, but I like YouTube. That's the social that's the media platform I've committed to outside of podcasts.
Okay.
And I'm good with that. And there's a lot of reasons which I don't want to get into, but because everybody has their own thing. But that's another thing. Like, my wife is a realtor, and she'll go to meetings and she'll say about all, social media marketing. I'm like, babe, you just pick one. You can't serve all these. You'll never work. I mean, and just pick the one you like, is what I always tell people. Which one do you like? Because that's the one you're willing to work with. Whatever you like is going to be the one that you should work on, because why should you work on something you don't like?
Absolutely. Well, Craig, it's about time to wrap this up.
Right on, man.
It's been a pleasure talking to you about all this, and I've learned a lot, and I definitely think that people will be able to take this in and be like, oh, that's I shouldn't market to myself, and these are things that Craig has definitely enlightened everybody on, is just being able to understand like what's going on with you, the relationship with you and your customers, and I'm glad that we are able to talk about stuff like this.
Thanks, Jackson. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. So this is time. Feel free to give everybody your everything,
Yeah.
or his links and all that stuff.
Great. So I run a Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. If you're into music and you're into hearing the backside of what makes people tick, check out the show. We have a YouTube channel, and it's also any place you can listen to where podcasts are distributed. I have another project I'm working on that's really close to being launched. It's called Music Licensing Profits. My partner and I have put together, his name is John DeFaria. He's licensed close to 9,000 tracks over the last 20 years. So we put together an online workshop teaching musicians and composers how to get into the music licensing business, which is probably one of the last remaining ways of getting, royalties and earning a good living from making music, because unfortunately people just don't buy as many products as they used to. And that's going to be at musiclicensingprofits.com. Again, it should be up within the next 30 days. Also, if you're interested in working with me on some podcast consulting, you can go to, it's on the Everyone Loves Guitar website, but as a shortcut, ELG for Everyone Loves Guitar, elg.fun/podcast, elg.fun/podcast. It's basically for experienced podcasters looking to get a little more out of their show and out of the fun they're having, or for new people who want to get started and avoid making a lot of mistakes. I've got 53 growth strategies listed on that page. We could talk about any of those or any questions you have in general. And basically, we can cover things like marketing, monetizing your podcast beyond advertising, how you differentiate your show from other shows in your same niche. A lot of people ask me questions about equipment. I'm not a big believer in spending a ton of money on stuff. As an example, I didn't get a decent microphone until I had like 600 episodes under my belt, and it was great. Nobody ever said a word about the quality. What else? Making guests comfortable, how to get guests, podcast distribution. And another thing that seems people ask is how do they handle both their listeners and like nasty comments, basically. So we can cover any of those things. But you can, again, check that out at elg.fun/podcast. And if you just want to get a hold of me, go to everyonelovesguitar.com and go to the contact tab. And there's a place you can send me messages right there. And thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of this. And thank you, Jackson.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig, for sharing all that info. And please, everybody, go visit those links if you need that info. All right. Well, thank for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.